Okay, hey everyone, we're just coming up to about 4 minutes past, so I think it's probably good to get things kicked off. Hey, I'm James from the Philos team, and we are meeting today to discuss the simplification of onboarding costs, a new proposal for the Filecoin network. You've probably seen a lot about this in chat. Rest assured that there's been an awful lot of chat behind the scenes as well about this over the last couple of weeks. And we're here to answer any questions you might have, things like why removing the batch balancer, how a new per sector fee might work, what does it mean for SPs, for devs, for node operators, the gas optimizations and economic impact, and obviously what's next and how you can get involved. On the screen there, you can see some details, and I'm going to post in the chat now the links that you can see there. So FIP 1105 discussion was the original discussion. That was then followed by 1092, also linked there. And finally, the FIP draft that is this close to actually being merged and actually having a FIP number. But the content of what you see there, we'll probably get a couple of updates, but won't change much. So that's some good information there. Obviously, key thing today is that we have some of the people here that actually wrote the FIP. So I am delighted to pass it over to Philos protocol researcher, an excellent person in general, Irena, if I can pop things over to you.
Thank you, James. Hi, everyone. I'll start to answer the question in the slide to explain why we need this. This is a great agenda, so I will just answer those questions. But please feel free to interrupt anytime to have more to add the list of questions. Just interrupt me or write in the chat. And I will try to read the chat. James, if for some reason I miss some question in the chat, please interrupt me.
Okay.
So the starting point is why remove the batch balancer? And the question there is simple. Batch balancers was introduced together when we introduced proof aggregation, meaning one proof can be used to onboard many sectors to assure long-term balancing between new sector, new supply, and network burn. Okay, it was trying to align long-term value accrual doing this. It was a right design at the moment, but with the network, with the protocol actually changing FDM and changes and improve commit methods, batch balancer becomes to be updated, and actually nowadays it's a bottleneck to actually do batching and proof aggregation. It is a bottleneck because depending on the base fee values becomes not rational, not cost saving for SP to use these two tools, batching and aggregation. And this means that we have a concrete, basically practical limit on the onboarding rate. We can't grow too high because we can't use aggregation or batching, and if because base fee goes high. Okay, so there is this practical limit that is imposed by not using proof aggregation. So we want to get rid of this system, the batch balancer, in order to be able to say to everyone, hey, use batching as much as you can, depending on your steering pipeline, and use proof of aggregation every time you can. So that's the answer to first. Now, when you go to remove batch balancer, of course, you have to keep in mind why it was there. It was there for guarantee network accrual, so some balance between new supply and burning. So we have to capture that with a replacement. And our idea was to introduce this per sector fee that should capture this goal of balancing the supply in a way that we hope is more simple to model and more predictable. And why is that the case? Because it's not linked to base fee. So the new fee work in a simple way. Every sector has has attached this fee that is computed at onboarding time. So onboarding, it's easy to predict the value of the fee because I just have to look up the value of circulating supply of the day before. So say I want to onboard the sector today, I look at what was the circulating supply value yesterday. Okay, it was X number of tokens. I take a very small fraction. The parameter is in the fee is just a ugly number, but it's a super small, fraction of this. Is fixed. It will not change over time. It's it's my fee. Okay, this is the fee for my sector for the entire duration, lifetime of the sector. This is the fee. So super easy to predict the cost. Now, the way the fee is actually paid, so the tokens are burned, we thought that burning altogether out of onboarding was not the best design choice here, because out of onboarding already there are costs like sealing is already spent, and then you have the fee, the Precommit deposit if you are not using non-interactive, so you have additional costs. So we didn't want to add another one. So for implementation, we decided to actually take this payment and split, basically do a daily payment that is especially makes sense for Filecoin because we already have a scheduled daily proof. The window posts are due and ready for each sector daily. So basically the idea is that instead of paying everything for the entire duration proof commit time, you actually pay the fee daily at window post time. So this is how it works. But what I want to stress is that the payment will not change over time. Okay, so the value, how much you have to pay daily before upfront, like it from proof commit time. What does this mean for storage providers? So first of all, it means it's easy to predict the cost of your sector. And in general, we hope it's easy to predict gas fees for a sector. Because in principle, this new design should avoid having base fee spikes because of boarding rate. We know today that onboarding gas is like majority, like half of the gas units that we use. So any change in the onboarding rate is causing base fees spikes or going down, base fees changes. Thanks to this fee, then thanks to this new design and removing batch balance, this will happen. We hope this should happen less. So more predictability, more stability, simple to model. Should be the impact. As gas optimization economic impact, I think the things I want to stress more here without repeating about going back to predictability. We estimated that if if batching and proof aggregation is used at full adoption of these two pipelines, these two options for pre and proof commit, this should allow you to save at least 30% of gas units per sector. And I'm talking just of gas units. Then you also have saving from gas fee, maybe not spiking, and this is extra on top of that. So gas optimization, gas units optimization should be 30% at least, because in principle, if you use non-interactive methods, non-interactive proof commit methods, it's even before. I'm sorry, I don't have the number. I'm still working on that number. I'll update the FIP as soon as I have a reliable estimate. So this is my overview. I want to know your question, and actually not just question, but please any comments or feedback on this. So what's next is like validating with your opinion, comments, this design for me. That's the next step. James, back to you.
Thank you, Irena. So no questions in the chat just yet, but we have some that were submitted earlier. So this is more from the purview of a token holder. What is the impact of this change on fill token supply over the next 10 years?
Yeah, so we have we have some graph about this. This is we were able to I don't know, James, if you want to share, go through the FIP maybe for a second, so that we can actually see the graph. Should be in the main body. Let me read the graph. This one. So be the next one, so please. Yes, that one. So we were able already to model how much this fee will burn. I'm sorry, I think I didn't read the question loud. So let me read the question first. What is the impact of this change on field token supply over the next 10 years? This is the question. And how to answer is to look at the last, on the right graph, the one that has the caption cumulative fee, because this gives you how much this fee will burn in the next 10 years. We have three graphs, actually, three lines, because it depends on the growing trajectory of the Filecoin network. So the black one is assuming that we keep the same onboarding rate as we have today. So we simulate that we keep growing the same way as today, and you see that in 10 years you will be more, we will burn because of this fee. Only because of this fee, this is considered only this per sector fee, around 50 million Filecoin tokens. So this is it's the impact. If the network is growing more, it's the red line is actually assuming growing 2x of today constantly for 10 years. So again, this is our simulations, so our some edge cases, we will burn even more. The reality probably is something in the middle. The other two lines that you see there are in the case of actually shrinking network. So if we grow less than today. Yeah, so this is the impact. I don't know, Molly, you want to add something? So you nudging?
Sure thing. I think flag that all of these are models. So don't take any of these things as like clear predictions of what the future will look like. These are generalized models that taking a small set of data and then assuming or making a prediction of like, well, if the network did this growth pathway in the future, then this is what the result would look like. Based on those models, this could look like anywhere between 20 to looks like about 70 million fill burned over 10 years. But again, that's based on future network conditions that might adjust. And one of the things we liked about this model, maybe getting a little bit ahead to Danny's question in the chat, as we were looking between multiple different models, this balanced responsivity to network conditions. So the more success that Filecoin is having in the world, the more usage and adoption and contention there is for network growth space, the more cumulative fees can get charged, the more struggles the network is going through, the less of a fee is taken so that the network can kind of apportion more of its revenue to folks who need it. And so the responsivity to network conditions was a useful aspect here, but not so much. One of the things we are also very much trying to avoid in this design process is rate limiting or reducing the growth rate. And so that was one of the reasons for putting in kind of like stopgap safety measures of like, we never want this to be, a larger fraction of storage providers' block rewards than what they're earning from the sector, because we want to make sure that there's always a strong incentive to keep onboarding new data into the network. And one of the things, maybe to get a little bit ahead, also in hit Mossy's question of like, what is the impact of these changes, say from a user adoption perspective, we think this might actually have positive impacts from a client perspective, because this is removing an upfront fee that we've seen sometimes limits data onboarding for a client because like, oh, we're gas fees are high. We're seeing this kind of contention around base fee, which limits the onboarding rate of client data. In this model, instead, the sector is being charged its fee over its entire lifetime, so tiny, small fractions of fill each day. And instead, that's avoiding this kind of like upfront bottleneck that might restrict client data from getting onto the network in the first place. And so we think that's a benefit both to storage providers who maybe want to have more predictable sector operations and to clients who want to know that their data is onboarded to the network within a reasonable period of time so they can stop caching it themselves and start relying on Filecoin for their storage. And so those are some of the impacts and reasons why that a higher spread in cumulative fees we thought was a good outcome because it was responding to network conditions.
We have another question in the chat. I'll read through it for the benefit of those who may be on mobile. From Manu, in reference to the remove batch balancer, are there any unintended consequences from removing the batch balancer, such as increased network congestion or different incentive misalignments? Does this change affect the efficiency of proof aggregation pipelines?
Yeah, so last question. Yes, like removing batch balancer makes actually proof aggregation more efficient from point of view of just, you know, gas fees. It becomes cheaper doing proof aggregation, cheaper than it is today. So can this cause network congestion? Like no, in this it will cause for sure. I hope it will cause for sure higher onboarding rate. Today the onboarding rate can go above a given limit without causing base fee to spike. So removing batch balance means that we bring this limit a bit higher. Okay, so you can now onboard more than today. As I said, it's 30% more than today without causing the base fee to spike. Of course, if you go higher than that, there will be congestion again, and base fee will do its work again of stopping. But at least now we have a larger range of larger level of onboarding rate that we can sustain without base fee. So that's why we think this is a great optimization.
Can I maybe quickly add on to that, Irene? Like, totally agree. Maybe an important thing is that removing the batch balancer in particular does not remove the overall base fee and gas system. It's simply making sure that it's always rational and actually, yeah, pretty much in all network conditions, it'll be rational to aggregate sectors as much as a storage provider is willing and comfortable to do that. There is some amount of trade-off there of like, how long do you want to wait to accumulate sectors before you aggregate them and put them on chain? Depending on a storage provider's onboarding rate, that might, might be how many PIBs they can onboard within a particular day, affects what their aggregation rate might look like. But this makes it rational from a network perspective to maximally aggregate and batch to use the least amount of gas fees, and then the kind of like fee component of the per sector fee here does the work of making sure that there's value accrual in the network from all of that sector onboarding, and that's charged separately and is separated out from gas fees, which means we can do even more optimizations to gas fees and throughput, not having to worry about, say, tanking the overall, value accrual rate of the network as we, 10x the gas space of the network or change gas block limits or any of those sorts of changes now becomes easier and simpler to do and simpler to reason about from a network development perspective. So it's also a valuable simplification from a protocol perspective, which we think is going to be useful for future kind of development and research work.
Thank you, Manu. Thank you, Manu, for your question. Do you have any follow-up questions to that, Manu, or have we covered everything?
Yeah, fantastic. I think Irene and Molly, I mean, they've shared the perspectives that I was looking for. I think they've covered it very nicely. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. We have another question from Mossy. Considering Filecoin's current storage capacity, adoption rate among storage providers, and gas fee optimization, how do these factors influence the token's intrinsic value? And is there a projected sustainable price range for Phil based on network activity and demand for decentralized storage in 2025?
This is it's an interesting but a slightly hard question. There's a lot of factors that go into trying to figure out how a market might price a token like Filecoin at any point in time, and that is not something that we want to speculate on. We are not experts in reading the tea leaves of the crypto markets. We are protocol designers and core devs who are trying to build a functioning system. And so I don't want to speculate on future prices of things. I can talk a little bit about what the bigger picture might do to supply and demand. So this is taking a fee proportional to circulating supply. And so that fee gets burned. Those tokens are removed from circulating supply, decreasing the total supply of fill that is available if someone is trying to go and buy fill on an open market. And this is responsive to how big is circulating supply at any given point in time. So again, when you see a lot of onboarding, there will be a much higher cumulative fee getting charged over time, which means more fill being removed from circulating supply due to this fee. And the general, that definitely could have an impact on fill exchange rates into other currencies because there's a lower available supply and a lot of demand, both related to the fee and related, again, in these contexts of there being a lot of usage within the network that is causing this fee to be higher. And so that when we think about either having storage providers thinking about their fill on fill return, but also thinking about, hey, how is the exchange rate of Filecoin changing over the lifetime of a sector that they're earning block rewards for? One of the benefits of switching from an upfront gas fee to a fee that's charged over the lifetime of the sector is there's less speculating related to that fill price over the lifetime of a sector. You don't have to lease a bunch of fill upfront to put into your gas fee and to put in, you still have your pledge collateral, which is necessary from a security perspective, but it's reducing kind of this upfront fee and instead having it balanced with the price that you're, say, getting from your block rewards as the sector accumulates block rewards over time. So maybe more predictable, less speculation on behalf of a storage provider about how those prices change, and definitely in an environment either where the network continues growing as it is now or accelerates, or even if it shrinks some amount or slows down from its current pace. In all of those contexts, the kind of per sector fee would be taking some amount of fill out of circulation, thereby increasing the supply and having a downstream impact on exchange rates. But I don't want to speculate too much about exactly what that might be because I cannot read market tea leaves on exactly how to model this, because I think it doesn't just correspond to how much clients are willing to pay for their Filecoin storage. It has a whole ton of factors that we can't robustly model today.
Thanks, Molly. Another question I've received in DMs before. We talked a little bit about how it might affect SPs. How would this change impact client storage costs, so storage clients?
I think I talked about it very briefly in the earlier answer, but which was maybe less about the storage costs, but more about how much is there a potential bottleneck that clients have to overcome in convincing a storage provider to onboard their data into the network as soon as possible, which again, the more of a delay there is the more friction there is for a client. They can't rely on Filecoin taking their data faster. So we think it's There's a benefit for clients in terms of the speed of onboarding due to not having this upfront fee. And in terms of costs, generally, I think our expectation is that, you know, clients are kind of more thinking about the overall market of storage today and what they're willing to pay for different solutions. And so this looks a little bit more like, you know, there's great, I'm deciding between AWS or some other cloud solution, and you know, I have a storage price for what I would pay for Filecoin storage. And you know, again, this fee can never get so high that it's, say, eating into the amount that a client is paying the storage provider for storage. And so those are kind of like additional revenue streams on top of, say, just participating in the Filecoin network. But I could see a world like, I don't know, 10, 20 years from now, where storage providers are making the vast majority of their revenue through client storage deals. And you know, this fee would probably be insufficient at that point to correctly have the network be taking a you know, a share of that revenue source. So this is not, you know, we're constrained in proposing a fee that, like, A, fits network conditions today, and B, you know, I think the design process for this was like over top of winter holidays in response to a lot of the kind of gas fee congestion we were seeing, like December 17th of last year. So we're limited from a time perspective as well. So this is not the be all end all of all kind of like revenue sources that the network might take in the future. I think we would expect to see a fee based on client revenue coming from a different place in the network, say within a market model. This is really just focused on the sector accounting value that the Filecoin network is offering. And so it isn't very responsive to how much, like, what is the price that storage providers are able to charge clients for onboarding their sectors. So at least that's my read of the question, James, as you're asking it, but maybe Irina has more to share there.
I think I mean, the TLDR here is that, again, this cost is more predictable for SP, and this, in my opinion, means that they can offer like more stable pricing to their client and more stable service, because they don't have to wait for base fee. Hopefully they don't have to look too much at base fee to decide if they want on board or not, and they can propose a price for a longer period without have to update that, because there are not unpredictable costs. So overall, improving predictability for SP means also improving the service to the clients. So that's my the short-term effect that also have all the long-term effect that Molly was also mentioning.
Irina, I saw above that you'd mentioned, you know, hey, we could maybe walk into the appendix section of like, hey, what were the other things considered? Did you want to do that?
Yeah, I think Danny was asking to know more about dynamic versus the static approach, because that was actually mentioned in the fifth discussion. And so, you know, the static approach means we fix a price per sector that is fixed, like this many tokens forever. Dynamic means we take in account many inputs variable and we change the fee according to this variable. And clearly, you know, the fixed approach has the nice feature of being very predictable, because you know that's the price is going to be that for the next years, and that's it. But has the problem of not being able to capture scenarios of a network that is maybe growing and is actually where SP has more deals and maybe extra revenue, or a network that is actually shrinking because many reasons that we don't know. But if it's shrinking, means that for the one that they stay, they have a block level that is higher. So, but maybe they don't have other revenue. So, you know, there are different situations. So we end up with actually doing something that is an hybrid. I like it to call it hybrid approach, because we decided to have, you know, The fee is based on an economic indicator that is dynamically changing depending on the network health and different scenario of growing circulating supply. Circulating supplies, we know that is influenced how much initial pledge is locked down, so it is influenced by the network growing and the onboarding rate. But to avoid being too much, hard to predict, we are taking a fixed amount that will not change. So the fraction that actually define the fees with respect to security supplies is fixed as a protocol, contract that it will not change in the future, unless, as Molly was saying, in 10 years we need to adjust it because the scenario is really changed. But it's not like something that has a schedule to be changed in 6 months or monthly or daily even. We even started with something daily, and we end up discarding such kind of changes because of predictability was a key feature to maintain. So that's the recap about how we handle handle dynamic pricings versus a fixed one. You see the effect of our choice in this graph that are in the appendix is actually, so the top one graphs are actually showing the effect of the fee that is proposed in the FIP. And we already look at the cumulative fee column. What is interesting, I think, is to look at the fee over the ratio, the column on the left. So the ratio between the fee and the sector reward. So how does this fee compare to the reward that is gained by the sector over the entire lifetime? Here we are considering the simulation, we are considering sector that has the duration of 1.5 years, just for simplicity. And you see the dynamic, the effect of choosing a dynamic indicator of security supply by the fact that we have four different trajectories here. So if the network is growing, this fee will take a larger fraction of the block reward. But if on the other way, if the network is not growing, so it's actually shrinking, so we have power that is leaving the network, the fee will not grow with the same pace, with the same slope. In the case of the network ongoing power being half of today's rate, is actually stable to always the same constant. And this is what we mean it the fee adapts with the network condition. To understand this even better, look at the second, the bottom graph. That is plotting the same ratio fee over block reward in the case where the fee is based on block reward. So the fee doesn't look anymore as security supplies, but is actually a fraction of the block reward. This is what one of the design that we actually considered during the research phase for this FIP. You see that there is only one line, there is only one trajectory, because if that is basically the case of a static fee that doesn't look at the condition of the network, if the network is growing or is shrinking, it doesn't know, it doesn't care somehow. And the fraction that the fee is taken from the block reward, the per sector block reward, stays always the same. So this is one of the differences that make us decide we want to go with the circulating supplies to be in the dynamic, easy to predict, but still dynamic model.
Yeah, and I think as you can see, or maybe I was just going to add on, Renee, or reinforce what you just said, which is having that responsivity to network conditions. We think, applies some amount of cushion in the case where the network is either, stable or shrinking, where it's decreasing the fee rate versus in conditions where the Filecoin network is under high demand and growing quickly. There's more value sources flowing into the protocol, and that fee is able to rise proportionally to kind of like help the whole network benefit and harness those inbound revenue sources. And so that the adjustment there, both in the fee context and in kind of what that looks like from a cumulative fee perspective, was definitely an indication that going with the circulating supply denominated value was more aligned with kind of this economic feedback loop on the network, while still being predictable and incremental, which were some of the key design principles that we were taking into account as well.
Thank you very much. We've had a question for GM. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Irene, you've already started answering.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
I'm happy to also, for the one that are only listening, to say it. So the question was about SPID, do they need to calculate the payments on daily basis? How could you provide an estimate of the additional resources that SPIDs will need to allocate, facilitate this day calculation? No, so you don't have to do daily calculation. This is another, I think, nice feature here. You need to do the calculation only once per sector. You do it at onboarding time, so it's during proof commit. So it's very similar to today initial pledge calculation. So a proof commit, if you want to know how much is the initial pledge, you have to know more or less the circulating supply value and do some math around circulating supply. Same here. So you have to know the circulating supply value of the day before and apply a very easy formula. It's actually an easier formula, easier than the initial pledge one for this new fee. Once that you have this value, this gives you your daily payment, and it will not change in the future. So how much you will pay in 1 year of your sector, it's the same value. So once that you have done this math, it's over. You can just store it. And I think there is a question from Mark on this about how to calculate the most appropriate proof commit time. So I think you mean when I should onboard in my sector. How do I decide when I'm bored, if I wait or not? I'm reading the question in this way. And again, is more or less the same methodology that you use today to evaluate about initial pledge, because it's based on circulating supply, the fee. So the higher circulating supply, the higher the fee. If you have the reason to still on board with a slightly higher fee, you go ahead as today. If you have reason to put more for initial pledge, you go ahead on board. If you want to wait for that to decrease, you wait. It's your risk management strategy there. But what is nice, I think, here is that circulating supply is something that is already has to be considered by storage providers because of initial pledge, and so similar logic will apply to this fee. Let me know, Mark, if I got the question. How does the next? I'm going to read the other question. How does the new fee model impact the long-term profitability for storage providers, and what price range for Filecoin ensure economic stability in this model? Okay, these are both a bit hard. Profitability for storage providers. So we don't have the numbers. We are actually working to add graphs to show a Filecoin or Filecoin returns, of course, by simulation. So to take everything as an estimate, but there will be I will push and add it to the PR in the next couple of days with this graph, I promise. What I can tell now is that we hope we are having a cost in order to improve predictability, because the idea is that we don't want to be in the situation anymore where you see base fees going. Basically, we want to avoid what happened in December. in December, there was a moment where people wanted to add sectors because of demand, because money, and because of doing that, base fee went high, and that going high means gas fee for onboarding was so high that was actually hitting, returns of other sectors that were already onboarded previously. So you have this huge cost for a moment in time for this sector that is actually hurting you very badly. We want to avoid that. We want to have Filecoin profit per sector that are more stable and predictable. And that's the general idea. Again, I'm sorry, I can't give you the exact number, but we are assuming something like, because there is no base fee spikes, overall base fee is more stable, and this can give you overall something in the range maybe 2% gas saving overall among all the methods, not just actually onboarding. So this is the situation, and hopefully we will have like a graph to show more precisely the numbers here. What price range for Filecoin ensure economic stability in this model? I don't know, Molly, if you have a good answer here, because I think probably.
I don't have a great answer, but I think it's a really interesting question, and
Yeah.
maybe there's a model that we could get to with some help from better crypto economic modelers than us to try and like give a feedback loop on that. Definitely, we expect there to be some balance where, you know, there being a like this fee having an impact on the total fill supply and the kind of like token terminal estimated like protocol revenue will have an impact on what that means from like, you know, price range, exchange rate, things like that. An estimate of like what that means, like for example, like if we take current average leasing rate, so you know, something like a 8 to 15%, oh sorry, thumbs up, leasing rate from token leasers, the fraction of fill-on-fill returns that storage providers use to cover their costs and their profits, and then current like token price. And so you can estimate there, I guess, a USD denominated revenue value for storage providers. And then we could calculate out the other angle, like, okay, you know, say that we have a 30% decrease in per sector onboarding gas costs, which I think is about the estimate that we've been saying for removing the batch balancer on the proof commit method in particular. And we have kind of like the fee charged over the sector's lifetime that is now shared between both the storage provider and the token leaser. And so there's some fraction of that that is adjusting the yield rate, and some amount of that then goes from the SP costs and profits. Now, okay, what USD dollar value is the unknown that would cause those equations to balance? So at what point is it then equivalent from a USD SP profit perspective in those two models? So if the effect on fill exchange rate is such that it reaches this amount, now we're, you know, equal to or positive in the USD denominated profits, which I know a lot of storage providers care about because they're thinking about USD denominated costs for buying hardware or energy or things like that. So we can go and do that estimate, but take into account, one of the reasons that this is challenging is we're trying to like, you know, modeling base fee into the future is exactly what is very difficult, both for storage providers and in building these simulations and models. And so that's where getting an accurate picture of that to then balance against this much more predictable fee is a little challenging for us to estimate. But we can, similar as we've done here, take a couple of different hypothetical network conditions and be like, well, it's somewhere between these estimated values, and we'll do that calculation and get back to folks. But it's a very good question, and I totally understand why it's important to folks.
Thank you very much. And question from Marco: will the new proposal affect the change of base fee?
Yes, I think per Renee's notes, we expect it to cause there to be fewer spikes in base fee based on onboarding. So, now you can aggregate your sectors. That should generally, decrease base fee overall, because regardless of network congestion, you can use that aggregation method. And based on onboarding in particular, we should see fewer base fee spikes. Now, that does mean that, hey, base fee can still vary based on all sorts of other network utilization rates, and it's not, removing any contribution from onboarding from the gas fee market. It's simply allowing you to utilize all of the aggregation and batching space without causing an additional demand on the base fee and on gas limits. Is that about right, Irina? Anything to add?
Yeah. That's right. So, like, just to be super clear, we are not touching the base fee mechanism with this fee. So base fee will do the same job that he has to do. Meaning, for some reason, we see huge activity from FVM. Say, in 6 months, FVM activity increase crazily, base fee will go up. These things can happen. We are not touching base fee. What we are doing is that we are basically so we are removing batch balancer. We are removing the fact that there is a fee that is per sector, but actually depends on the base fee. We are removing these extra complications so that you can compute your per sector fee without looking at the base fee, and then you have base fee gas for all others for the meter. And I think as an example to understand what could be the different effect is like, imagine that this is shipped today, and everyone the day after start to use batching. Today, batching and aggregation is not used because, like, for example, right now base fees is the base fee value is low. So if you try to use batching aggregation, you will have to pay this extra batch balancer fee. So you don't do that. We remove batch balancer, we ship this fee, we remove batch balancer. The day after, everyone can just you can just start to use batching and aggregation. If you compare that to today, or start to use batching aggregation, I mean also onboarding rate goes up. So SP can onboard more. I'm assuming there is a lot of assumption, but I'm assuming you have hardware and sectors that are waiting for board. You have those, and you start to actually do to onboard those sectors with a faster pace, because you can use the batching aggregation while you can't today. Onboarding rate goes up, and in a case with batch balancer, you see also base fee going up, as it was in December, for example, spiking and super huge gas onboarding costs. In the case of this FIP, you don't see that. You have the per sector fee cost, of course, to pay, but you don't have the base fee going up and actually making you with money, not just anyway, extra cost on onboarding, and also all the other methods, because base fee high affect all other methods, like the ones that you have to do, like window post and so on. So that's the difference of we hope to see. This is why we say we hope to see less base fee spikes because of onboarding rate. Then again, of course, if you keep the rate going high and high and high, and at some point we reach again the limitation of being close to the gas target for the block, base fee will go high again. But the nice thing is that we can act again on introducing new savings. We are actually working on gas savings, and we can just ship those without having to care about, hey, wait, but we are going to mess up with the crypto economics and nectar alignment, because this is already finally covered with the per sector fee. So we can just focus on improving, bringing down the gas onboarding the units without having to worry about we mess up with economical network alignment.
Thank you very much. A question that we had before the AMA from the developer perspective, how does this change the complexity of the protocol?
I think it's basically almost the same answer. Having overall a simple system help. I think it's an important feature for dApps. If you want to change and work on something that has a simple model, it's easy to understand and to argue about, this is helpful and allow you to also I think allow you to consider more changes in the future, more protocol changes, as I said before, things that right now are hard to understand the effect because it can have undecided effect if I do ship another proof of aggregation. Oh, I remember I worked on shipping non-interactive POREF, and we had to understand, okay, how much balance has to be work with non-interactive POREF? We have to recompute all the parameters, and we hope we have the right one. We don't know. These kind of things you don't have to do anyone. So writing and proposing, or even just thinking about the FIP, it's easier. And especially about this, we didn't want. We also think that the security supplies is a good answer value because it will not change. I mean, it will change, the value can change, but the definition will not. Compared to a fee that is proportional, for example, to initial pledge. Initial pledge values, we have seen this, the formula can change. And then if you do that, it's very hard to understand the long-term effects, what you're doing, okay? So we took an approach here to really ship something that is really make the system easy to and to model and to argue about. And this help the others that want to work on the system to propose changes or changes or improvements. Molly, you
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think your anecdote, like, you know, especially with FEM, with NIPOREP, like this complexity around the batch balancer has required much more kind of like small updating to this fee component. So it's been, it's not dynamically adapting to changes that are being made in the protocol. So it's both kind of like an unfortunate additional complexity that you have to estimate every time you're making another improvement to the protocol. And sometimes those improvements get forgotten about or not implemented as part of the change, which is how we end up with this unfortunate circumstance where it costs more to aggregate than doing single sectors, even though it's causing base fee to spike. And so that's a miscalibration of network parameters that we've gotten to because changes have incrementally landed into the protocol that needed to update these hard-coded values for, you know, when base fee was considered high enough to encourage batching or not batching. Again, it's just a slightly fragile or brittle approach. And this new version is both simpler and we think going to require a lot less finicky maintenance as we make future improvements and changes to the protocol. So that's a win for complexity and for developers actually being able to model and make changes directly to what they're trying to affect.
Thank you very much. We are almost at time. So for a last question, what is the timeline for implementation of the FIP? Could it possibly make NV25? Is that a viable possibility?
Yes, we are pushing for it because we want to see this improvement and simplification as soon as possible to be deployed. So we are pushing for this. The FIP, I actually moved the FIP to ready to review for FIP editors to have their path today. Rod did a great work last week to actually add the spec section, a lot more details. Please help us actually to push this through for the current timeline. Yeah, and Molly, you want to add something here?
Yeah, definitely we're going as fast as we possibly can to try and bring this improvement to everyone as soon as possible. We know that a lot of folks were hoping for a network upgrade with this change, like literally over the winter holidays. We weren't able to move quite that fast. We want to do more thoughtful modeling and considering of the different options and bring forward something that's like, well thought out and motivated. But at the same time, we also want it to be able to unblock onboarding as soon as possible, to add more predictability as soon as possible, and not delay the F3 activation timeline, which is also slated for NV25. So we're doing our very best, and we could really use your help to, as a network and as an ecosystem, review these changes, add questions. We've got a couple good ones from here. So in terms of kind of next steps to reach and meet that goal of being part of NV25. We'll work on getting kind of like the I think 2 outstanding questions here is trying to get a model around fill on fill return and some of the graphs that Irina was mentioning, and then trying to do this, fuzzy equation around, hey, how would we expect or what would be required in USD price value adjusting in order to keep USD denominated profits equivalent or higher. And so we can come back to you with those 2 things landing into the FIP discussion and draft directly. The timeline for NV25 that we're trying to hit is having FIPs go to last call on February 14th. So that's Friday of this week. Which is a tight timeline, and we really need your help in making sure everyone is aware and puts in their thoughts and support if they're in alignment with pushing forward on this. And then we would have, I think, about 2 weeks-ish of implementation work to actually implement and land these changes. I already have a couple of draft PRs on starting to pull out some of these complex batch balancer values so that we can get those out of the protocol and start simplifying it. And then it would be targeting NV25 network upgrade toward the end of April. So a calibration net upgrade in the beginning of April, and then mainnet upgrade in the end of April. And so that would happen alongside the F3 activation. So that's the timeline we're shooting for. If you can really help us by getting any open questions or concerns from others that you might talk to in the network as soon as possible so that we can help answer those questions and give ourselves the best shot of reaching community consensus as this goes into last call on Friday, that would be optimal, and we would really appreciate your help.
Thank you very much. We are at time. Thank you everybody for contributing today. Thank you very much for all your questions and to the authors for answering so many questions. As Molly said, that we really would appreciate your feedback on this as quickly as possible because we want to get it out there. We want to get the benefits to you. You can reach us in Phil Lotus Dev in Slack, but I would highly recommend that people post their questions and comments actually in the FIP itself on GitHub and the FIP discussion. This has been a collaboration between a number of ecosystem teams, and the best way to get your questions in front of all of those teams at the same time is actually by posting on GitHub. So please do that. I'm also happy to say that some of the authors of the FIP will be joining the SPWG call today, which is at 3 p.m. UTC. If you're a member of that call, don't miss it. You may have some questions that come to mind between now and then. You have a couple of hours or 3 hours to get those listed down. If you're not a member of the SPWG and you'd like to be, then please reach out to Global Storage Provider Community. I've put the link in the chat there. Just leave a message there and we'll be happy to get you on that call. But again, thank you very much to everybody for your input and for your collaboration. We look forward to seeing your questions and your suggestions in the FIP. And we shall see you soon. This has been recorded, and I will post a link to the recording in Slack as soon as it's available. But that's it from us. Thank you very much, everybody.
Happy Monday, folks. Nice to meet you all.